If you're at this cancelled music festival, clearly you must be wondering why you should be wargaming the Imjin War in 1/72 scale. And I'll quickly cover why the Imjin War is a fantastic setting to play miniatures in.
The Imjin War. When I bring these words up to people, they go like, huh? Or what? Or those imperialist pirate scum cannot live under the same sky as our people. So the response rate varies a lot. There is a lot of room in the bathtub. So you might be thinking, why wargame in the setting of the Imjin War? And the real answer is because you want to. Goodbye. Okay. I should give you some more detail. Fine. Different people like different things. Maybe you're drawn by the aesthetics of the armies. Maybe you're interested in the gravitas and complexity of history. That's cute. But these are pretty acceptable reasons. It's a hobby. You might have some things which are more compelling than others. But if I had to summarize the appeal of the Imjin War as a setting in a single concept, I believe that it is this: early modern Asian military armies. Now, this is a niche thing. I can't go around yelling early modern Asian military armies and expect to get anywhere other than the local army recruiting agency or maybe a jail cell if you lack the social skills to pull it off. And we're talking about wargamers here, so the odds are not good. Current popular concepts are innovative and flamboyant, like dragons fighting other dragons, or the lightsabers and the starships and Robot Man, or part of the computer systems with what is this? And you got this and these, and these grab you because they are flashy and ostentatious, and you start to lose people when you say Guak Jeyu's robes were dyed in the menstrual blood of young girls to repel the yang energy of Japanese bullets. Or maybe you attract the wrong people. Or, people don't care about talk about logistics or cultural assimilation or diplomatic relations between the Ming and the Chosun. It just isn't as loud or exciting. So, not a lot of people are going to be excited about this. But the people that love the dynamics and subtlety of human relations and psychology magnified to the level of empires, with competing interests and assumed cultural norms, who love realistic armor and weapon design, and seeing how regions and culture shape the look and feel of these armies, then this is a conflict wherein you can climb into the bathtub. This ain't explosions, or none of that shit. Though there are explosions in this war, the appeal of this period is never going to come from explosionisms, because fantasy universes and science fiction will have bigger and better explosions. It's just a brighter, louder playground, or larger bathtub. In Star Wars, they explosions a planet. It's just a bigger explosion. Now, I'm going into an in-depth analysis before I have the explosions in my pants from my bowels combusting after too many spicy McNuggets. Now available for a limited time only for only $14.95 at selected retailers. Get them today. Where was I? The armies look and feel distinct and are thematically and visually fantastic. I really like all three armies that participated in the Imjin Wherein and the Chongju Jairin. Chongjayu? Okay, most people know about and are drawn to the Sengoku Samurai, the Japanese armies under Hideyoshi's regency. The cultural appeal of the samurai is high on an international level. There's too many damn weeaboos out worshipping Japan like it's the second coming. Goddamn weeaboos. But even non-weeaboos, like myself, I'm not a weeaboo, I don't know what I'm talking about, there's no weeaboos here, know what the samurai are. Visually, the samurai just look very unique and ornate, with multicolored braiding on their armor, atop layered lacquered plate, artful face masks, and ostentatious heraldry atop their helmets. There is a lot of selection in different designs of armors and heraldry, as there wasn't one standard or uniform look for samurai armor, which was designed by various clans and families. This contrasts with the Joseon and the Ming, which evidence more emblematic uniformity. The Ashigaru look less cool, but they're still armored, and their potential for uniformity can make them appear disciplined and professional, and they have guns. They technologically outmatch their opponents at the beginning of the war, and they have a whole lot of guns, and this could appeal to Americans, I don't know. The proliferation of back banners make the whole army appear regimented, cohesive, and visually striking. There is a potential for beautiful designs on the banners. Some of the soldiers wear balloons. Maybe you like balloons. I liked balloons when I was 8. Japanese warrior monks look very distinctive and mysterious with their hidden faces and bald heads, so that's a different thematic direction to take your army. Gameplay wise, Japanese armies of the Sengoku Jedi utilized many musketeers and were mainly infantry with some cavalry, so they have very strong ranged and close quarter combat options. They are a very elite army, and this handles very well on the tabletop, so if you want something compact and precise, then this could be the army for you. The Joseon Koreans are not internationally recognized on the same level. Now I know that Korean entertainment has gained global cultural cachet with the K-pop and the K-dramas, but that shine hasn't passed onto their warriors and soldiers, and that's a shame. I think the Joseon dynasty armies had many distinctive visual elements. The scale armor worn by the generals were ornate and stunning. They've got tridents. You like Aquaman? You can do the Aquaman. I like tridents. They have plate and mail pengbesu, which just looks so formidable and serious. I love the plated collars and the head protection. The shields are very cultural, and there are many beautiful designs of the dragons. Admittingly, some of the troops look like waiters, but maybe you like waiters because you go to restaurants a lot, so you're used to the look and it's comforting. I don't know. People like firemen. Maybe it's like that. It's a uniform too. At least it's unique. Flails. Joseon cavalry like flails, and I like flails. You know, they're like nunchucks. They're just cool. They spin. They helicopter around. Twin swords. Yes, the Joseon Koreans had a manual teaching people how to fight with two swords on horseback. That's a whole thing. They made it into a thing. That's a heroic and badass idea. You can have an entire unit of dual-wielding cavalrymen, which is pretty unique and awesome. They have monks, you know, like just monks who were in the country at the time and didn't want to die, and so formed entire armies of monks. And they look distinct from the Japanese warrior monks. So a lot of great visual imagery here. They look more like, you know, other like normal monks which you see on the street. You see that more in the media nowadays. You just don't see warrior monks on TV a lot. So I really like the bold, flowy robe look. I think it's cool. The Joseon were known for their righteous armies, which were militia armies formed of everything from peasants, former soldiers, monks, and anyone else who was down to clown. This is an opportunity to have really characterful models that look like heroes of an action movie. You can tailor them, customize them, convert them, and make them really individual. I'm a hero, I don't take no shit. For the sneakerheads among you, the Joseon had these really spiffy looking boots which require freehand, and these nice straw sandals. I just think they look neat. If you compare the Gypsyn to the new Air Jordan 5 DJ Khaled We The Best Crimson Bliss, there is a more textured, earthly look, invoking concepts of pastoralism in line with people's physical connection to the land, and is for the everyman with a very low cost. Just find some straw, you'll have a pair after some weaving. It's fine. They are unbranded, adhering to a single classical color and aesthetic, matching the conformity of Joseon society, and they are versatile and lightweight. Whereas the new We The Best line looks like someone vomited crayons on someone else's shoes, and looks otherworldly in its color palette and artificial industrial contours. which is only made more inaccessible by its $225 price tag, symbolizing man's ever-increasing distance from God's light.
What a great color!
They've been commodified beyond the point of practicality.
Another one.
They are a gaudy excess in the field of shoemaking. They are emblematic of the decline of civilizations. And this is why I prefer Joseon shoes. The Joseon also used brigandine armor and lamellar armor like the Ming, so they're quite similar in this case, but there's a lower incidence of such armors. The Joseon seem to be less well equipped than the Ming, so if you like to have more of an individual look for your unit members in your units, then this can provide more opportunity to have a less cohesive look, a more individual look. I'm not going to say ragtag, but if you're making a righteous army, you can go that route, you know? So more options for even greater diversity within units. Gameplay wise, the Joseon Koreans aren't known for their quality. This is historically accurate, so you'll probably have more units to compensate. Some army lists will give you artillery, like the Hwacha, so you might have decent shooting. Koreans are known for their bows, even to this day, still a popular national sport, and they had a higher incidence of cavalry than the Japanese from all those years of fighting the Jurchens, so you get a different gameplay style. The Ming Chinese are not well known in the West. People in the West know about knights and even the samurai, but Ming armies, well, people have no idea. This can be a good thing because they can seem more fresh, novel, and exotic. Obviously, if you grew up in China, it's less exotic, or even Asia. One of the most visually distinctive elements of the Ming army, and a centerpiece model for their armies, is the Ming general. The general's armors look fantastic. Look at the intricate patterns of the mountain scale armor, the ornate beast heads, the wings on the helmet. If you like brigandine armor, we have brigandine in spades, with a lot more uniformity than the Koreans. The Ming looked quite similar to the Joseon Koreans, but I would differentiate them visually by making the Ming more armored and more uniform, more conforming to each other. There is a visual rhythm in having a uniform army. It looks neat, and the Ming can look very cohesive. At the same time, China is really big, so you have a difference between the Ming northern and southern armies. Visually, the South have their own aesthetic. In the South, they have turbans. I like turbans. I don't care, I'm not racist. I'll turb all day. The cavalry in the South liked lamellar armor. Do you like lamellar, but want visual consistency in your units so you can have a whole unit of lamellar cavalrymen? The Southern Ming cavalry can do that for you. There are also many variations of armor with scaled coats, lamellar armor, red brave helmets, and plain helmets as well. You can create a very diverse looking army if you wish. The Ming also have the Jinyi Wei, the embroidered uniform guard, who served as bodyguards and secret police for the emperor, and their robes are very decorated and intricate. This beautiful element could really stand out on the tabletop. Gameplay wise, the Ming Chinese have a flexible range of options, given how vast China was. Do you prefer infantry armies? Play as the Southern Ming, with their spear formations. Do you prefer cavalry? The Northern Ming developed horse archers in their fight against the steppe nomads. The Ming had light infantry, archers, musketeers, heavy spear formations, artillery, light cavalry, heavy cavalry. They just had a very diverse unit roster. The Ming can do many things. You like history because you're just not that into big dragons with big explosions exploding all over each other. The benefits of history can be quite broad because, well, human history is quite broad. Sometimes unbelievable bullshit happens, like the current prices at Games Workshop. And sometimes it's really funny, like the current prices at Games Workshop. But I think the best parts of history are that it's real, and this gives historical wargaming a gravitas and realism that outpaces fantasy and science fiction. I don't know how to explain why real things are good, but real things are grounded in reality. Even if it's crazy, we know it happened, and some people feel more immersed or engaged with reality as a result. History carries a gravitas that fiction doesn't because real tragedies and real triumphs are amplified, and they even become the basis of culture. For example, in Korea today, the Imjin War is remembered as a national tragedy and is commemorated in statues, which you can see around the city, in shrines, in museums, and in the media, like in the movie they released this year, Hansen, Dragon Rising. History carries a gravitas that fiction doesn't, because real tragedies and real triumphs are amplified. There becomes a real emotional investment in the part of someone's life. And since this is wargaming, we're portraying tumultuous events, which are heavy with emotion. Now, there is a whole ethical discussion here around portraying real war as a game, which I do want to cover, but it would take too long. But we're talking positives here. So the positives are history can feel more grounded and serious. History can't be trademarked. You have multiple companies making the American army during World War II, which means the miniatures come out cheaper because companies don't have a monopoly on the range. Monopolies are bad. The worst monopoly is definitely Heinz monopoly. Really? We're going to try to buy Heinz products and charge people for using them? What is this, the apocalypse? Who's going to pay people to borrow ketchup? You know why this exists? Because Hasbro has a monopoly making this game. This is why monopoly is bad, and therefore why Hasbro is bad. Bad Hasbro. History is often more nuanced than fantasy and science fiction worlds. Now, I'm generalizing here, but sometimes when you're world building, you might forget to flesh out some things. Like for a conflict, what are the logistics? What is the factionalism in the forces? What are the human rights abuses? What are the cultural and racial slurs that each side uses to demonize the other? What are the hidden agendas of the commanders? What are the deep human flaws of the commanders which will impact the battle? Which sides have been using intelligence networks and how? Which side has been using traitors and how? And things like that. Now, good fiction will explore an event with nuance and detail, but that's on the capacity of the author, whereas history just happens. So it's up to people to investigate and find out the nuance, the details of the complex interwoven factors that make up everything that happens in real life. Hashtag some people are fascinated by the complexity of human life, which makes sense because we live human lives of infinite complexity. And to navigate history is to see ourselves reflected through alternative lens, which brings us to the human spirit yearns to see itself reflected. So I just brought up how the nature of political division and human flaws and agendas as reasoning to wargame the Imjin War. And you might be confused because that's not as cool as instant gratification stimulus of cool armies, samurai are cool, armor is cool, look how cool it all looks. Well, I did not do that because coolness and taste is subjective, and the visual is a compelling reason to wargame. But this is contested quite well by science fiction and fantasy universes, namely Warhammer. Warhammer is the monopoly, and I could say that they're going for the Heinz route with the new World Eaters release, with all the blood effects for the blood god. But science fiction and fantasy have larger than life elements that look visually impressive. There's an appeal to that. But even though the bright lights and loud sounds get all the attention, I think there is an appeal to the human spirit that all these contraptions are building upon and dressing up. What do I mean by this? Well, let's use an example that wargamers know. Warhammer. If you notice that they try to inject character into all the 40k armies, like the Necrons, even the Tyranids, which are the antithesis of character. They make the different hive fleets different colors and have different methodologies for warfare. They have different characters, like the Swarm Lord and the Parasite of Mortex, with their own backstories. In the Devastation of Baal, it says, quote, "The Imperial scholars were wrong. The hive mind knew. The hive mind thought, it felt, it hated, and it desired." End quote. So everyone's got character. Even the most alien of factions, portrayed as a hive mind of a single gestalt consciousness. But why does this matter? It's because the audience, us, are human beings. I think. I hope. And most of the things we want are human when you strip away all the decoration and elaboration. Discussions around Primarchs are usually centered around their characters, their interactions with others and such, because we see ourselves in them. It's why we have protagonists in movies and the reason we identify with certain characters. Why Tyrion Lannister is a favorite, because we laugh at his wit, we identify with his feelings of alienation and inadequacy, and his struggles to live up to his family name. These human qualities matter to us. It is the whole basis of narrative. No matter if Rogel Dawn has gold armor and a massive chainsword that looks cool, these things are surface level. They can't engage you for years. They're too superficial. A cool visual can fascinate and tell a story in itself, but we have more depth when we examine Rogel's stoic loyalty to the throne, no-nonsense and dutiful nature, his stubborn sense of honor. Then we get a sense of a man, and that's what engages people in the 40k lore. So that makes me think, why do you need anything else? Here is a man made physically into a superhero, but the fascinating aspect is the man himself and his character, and all the upgrades are just for the rule of cool. What matters to different people is subjective, but if you're interested in human beings, history, then the Imjin War provides the most core of human stories. But where the Imjin War can go even further is that it can go into topics that a commercial, publicly traded company like Games Workshop cannot go. Not shock for the value of shock itself, but topics which are more taboo, like extreme violence, like how the Japanese would cut off the noses of their enemies as evidence of kills, or sex. Space Marines can't have sex. But that doesn't stop people from trying. I've seen people model like Dark Elder sex slaves as objectives. There's a lot of repression in society. Now, obviously, going around yelling about sex around a tabletop is tasteless and is ironically less likely to get you laid. But it is a vital part of the human experience that wargamers miss out on. But I'm telling you, it's a big deal in human circles. My point is that history gives you more breadth to consider the full depth of human experience. Horrifying and sordid though it may be, Space Marines love duty, glory, honor, and the Emperor. How many of you love duty, glory, honor, and your president? Okay, maybe a few, but you also love chicken wings, wives, having financial stability, and having a weekend getaway. There's just less layers of relatability with these fantastical elements when you compare them to real life. For low fantasy settings, where the characters are basically just humans, then I guess this point applies there too. But that's okay. Wargames aren't mutually exclusive. You're actually allowed to like more than one thing. You won't go to jail, it's fine. In summary, I think what makes the Imjin War appealing as a wargame setting applies to many historical settings. But what makes this conflict unique is it draws together three distinct Asian nations, and you can see this clash of cultural values play out. For much of the Sengoku Jidai, the samurai just fought other samurai. But when they invade Korea, the Koreans are understandably upset and ask the Chinese to intervene, so you get three distinct historical armies with different priorities, cultures, and philosophies of warfare that shaped their army composition and armor designs. From the battle-hardened by Civil War Japanese infantry formations, which had embraced the gun and were known for their skill with the sword, to the bow-wielding, long-range, anti-cavalry, Korean, foot and mounted troops, to the Chinese hereditary professional soldiers of massed, plentiful spearmen, supported by a love of gunpowder artillery and musketeers. With the basis of these three unique armies, wargamers who are interested in narrative and like human beings can explore the human stories and cultures behind the characters in the invasion. And that is why the Imjin War is a fascinating, vivid setting. Early modern Asian military armies.
So there you have it. That is why you should be wargaming the Imjin War, because it's a great setting with many fascinating antagonists and protagonists and factions. And so we have to get out of here before we get arrested. So I'll see you guys later.